Это я вовремя
Хай-хай.
успел.
Ага.
Давай, может, потом начнешь записывать, когда мы кол
Я не
начнем.
могу. Там автостарт.
Мгм. А Игорь как-то может.
Magento ребята могут.
М.
Они у нас с доступами.
Они из Adobe, да?
Да, они без удобия.
Как
Так
дела?
что все, что ты будешь сказано, будет использовано против тебя в суде.
Я понял. Все, что я будешь сказано. Покажи свой крутой вид из окна.
Я на ту сторону, которая не самая, когда...
Ты все, я понял тебя. Ты на месте Алекса.
Мгм. Hi, Piotr.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, hi. Good. You?
I'm doing good.
Good. Let's wait a couple of minutes. Maybe somebody else join. Valery will be a little bit late. He has a stand-up, weekly stand-up,
Sure.
also at the same time. Let's wait a couple of minutes. Maybe somebody else will come and then we can start.
Oh, the pictures on call.
Now we have two times Piotr. Okay.
Yeah, I joined from my desktop as well, just to better see the screen.
Петр
Okay.
второй.
Good. Okay, I guess we can start. We will not wait for Valery. I have all info. So yeah. So basically, we worked with Valery last week or 2 weeks. Already lost on the backlog for the synchronous import. We checked the current implementation we have. Okay. We defined which points we need to put in MVP and which we can move for the phase number 2. So I will make a short presentation of the list of the features and basically the project goals and questions we have also for you, Piotr, related to some security issues. Maybe you can give us some advices. So I'll start and share my screen. Yep. You see it all good?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. So, basically, yes, we're talking about the import itself. We split it, the whole import process on several parts. We have like one block is a management of the sources, so that the files which are coming into the system. Then we have the import process API, so that's all operations which user can do with an import, like run, check the status, and so on. We'll go deeply later. We have the base CSV parser, so the goal of the project is to, as MVP, or like it's even not MVP, it will be later, but the goal is to provide the same functionality as Magento import already provided to the customer. So we have to cover all the same features and add new ones on top. So in the first step, we support in the CSV format only. So we need to create a parser for it who will manipulate and work with the CSV files. Then we have asynchronous web endpoints. So the main basically goal why we decided to launch this project and start to develop import module is that we want to use the synchronous approach of the communication between the services in Magento. So the main idea that the whole import will run asynchronously, will not overload the system, and yeah, will follow the guidelines related to the service isolation approaches. We have fields mapping and data converter. So as I told in the beginning, we will support exactly the same functionality as we have already in Magento, but in addition, we want to provide the customer possibility to use any format of their source files. So we're talking about the CSV, you export it from your ERP system, wherever the ERP system is, and then by using the correct configuration or like mapping interfaces, you can map the fields between your CSV columns, for example, and the Magento objects and Magento specific attributes for the object which you try to import. And we have the test coverage, which is in any case required, and then some architectural part, but that's more already the Magento team to provide their own repository. We want to stick to the independence release cycles in the same way as MSI is doing it. I'll go a little bit in details, basically what is MVP and what is not MVP in our case. So the source management we support in the CSV. Yep. So we can upload the file itself. We have 3 different formats. Is a local file, which is located on a local system within Magento directory. Here we thought with Valery that basically we just will define the location where the file can be placed, just for the security reasons. I mean that you cannot, let's say, use something like this and it will go somewhere away. So we will add a validator who will validate the file location itself. Then we have a remote file which will be uploaded remotely, like by HTTP link, for example. And then we have base64 in the same way as Magento manipulates currently, let's say, with the product pictures. So we can transfer the base64 and call it content of the file. It will be saved, and then you can process this file. Those all will be handled by one service contact, so by importing the sources and then CSV type, because we're talking about the CSV. Then we have also update. With update calls, you can only update the format. So if you're talking about CSV is a, let's say, delimiter, multiple value separator, or enclosure. So those parameters you will use when you upload the files. Basically, let's stop the sharing for a sec. We'll share the full screen just to have here the postman to see what I'm talking about. So for the format, you can define the 3 different parameters, and with update you can update only them. I mean, you cannot update the file itself. If it's already uploaded, it's uploaded. You already have a UID for this file. If you want another file, you just make it another post request. Then we have get, list, delete requests. We move them to not to MVP. We move them to phase number 2. They're not so critical for the processing. And we have also the partial upload, which also will be moved to some phase in the future. Then we go into import process. Basically, we start in the import itself based on the file. We can get the file status after basically the import status is here, the small error basically. Get the status of your import and get the imports which are currently in the system and their statuses. So technically, you may run the multiple imports at the same time. As we're talking about asynchronous approach, that should not be a problem. And then additional, which will go to the next phase, is like deleting an import from database. It's basically mostly like data cleaning, or if you don't want to have the mess there, we will have the mapping, the custom mapping that will go to the phase number 2. We will have a UI interfaces from a backend where you see the imports list, and the same is for the sources. You can also see the sources which you have. That's for the admin users who are using the UIs, and again get operations and restart the failed operation if you want. It also will go to the next phases. Just small note, why we decided to split source management and import process. So basically, your import workflows consist from 2 parts. First, you upload the file. Second one, you start the file. From basically, it came from our experience, like me, like working in agency with the customers. This experience is coming from the phase where we can have one big file, and technically, as we know how many different objects Magento has, we can use the same file for import different object types. So an only difference for the developer in this case, or for integrator, will be to define the another mapping for this object by using the same source ID, and you can then just start it and import different entities. Definitely the parser will be an MVP, the communication way will be an MVP, and the base mapping, which we will define on a configuration level, we will not give this to the user possibility to do it in MVP, so we will support currently the standard Magento imports. This means we will have the base or import object with the base formats. And then for the MVPs, I mean, Magento has a multiple import types. It's basically the products, prices, customer addresses, some other, don't remember exactly which ones. But as we want to make MVP, we want to make the first example, how it will work, how it will perform. So we stick to something simple. First is an advanced pricing, where we have add, update, workflow, and delete. So they're quite simple because it's only one table without any custom options or custom attributes. Good to integrate on the first version. Then we thought about products. That's not really clear. We basically, Piotr, you as a product owner can maybe help us on this question, because products object is very, very complex. We don't want to support it on a MVP, like the whole functionality, but we thought about some minimum, like if you can upload the SKU name, price, website, assignment, and let's say custom attributes, and then you can import, and that will be like MVP, and then on the next version we can add support of all other features, or we can basically skip it and put let's say to phase number 2, where we're making the full products import coverage.
Yeah, I think images is a required one as well, but other than that, I think it can be done in like phases.
Yeah,
and
agree here. Good. And then we have the customer entities, which will be the next phase, and we also got a request, and we think that we will manage to use the stock sources for MSI project, because they're also quite simple. That's like a table with 2-3 columns, I guess, and that's quite simple API body also. So we will integrate with this also in MVP then. And documentation, that's self-explanatory. So finally, our MVP looks like this. That's basically the same what you saw before, but more structurized. We have already done all interfaces for basically all of those stuff which I just talked about. We don't have like implementations, but interfaces are done. we had local file upload functionality done, an import start process, which is only start, it's not processing. But that's something we have now, and all other points are still open. We have basically several also issues which we are maybe will need an advices on. As from the beginning, as we're talking about that CSV source uploads, local file, okay, it's quite clear. If you're talking about remote or base64, how is it from the security point of view? I know that, Piotr, you're working on security of Magento.
Essentially, just like very high level, before we get into that, what's the plan of bringing this functionality into Magento? Will it going to stay as an kind of extension, or is it supposed to be part of the core distribution?
Yeah, that's a good question. We plan to have it separate, like basically again like MSI. So in the same way that we have the separate repository for it, it will be like a separate module that you can install in addition with Magento if you want to.
It would be installed by default when you do like Composer, create project, Magento 2 will get installed. MSI gets installed this way.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Because we want to replace the default import. This means it will not be, I mean, I hope when we will be done with the same coverage, it will not be there anymore. So it makes sense to have it also installed instead of it.
Okay, yeah. So in this case, this should go through threat modeling. And this is something we need to do on our side just to like get those points to the security team, and they on the Adobe side, and they will, provide some guidelines and also provide some like guardrails, like what needs to be looked into a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, both local file and remote file, like for API, it's like both have own issues possible. Also the whole authentication, because you can essentially like replace all product, so it has to be properly authenticated. So there are a couple of things that needs to be reviewed, and I wouldn't want to talk about like specific things yet. Just yeah, I will talk with Alexander and Alex and Valerie, like to get this into so-called threat modeling system.
Good. Yeah, sounds good. We had another, yeah, as you asked about the module as a separate. The initial idea when we started to think of this project, even which was quite a long time ago, that's to build it like a service. So basically, you have two ways. You can install it like part of Magento, as you said, out of box, or technically you can also possible to install it like a separate service that will communicate with Magento, because technically you can have one import instance and have multiple Magento instances installed, and you can just, let's say, you send or even not Magento instances, but multiple services, and you send, let's say, customer to the service number 1 and the product to the service number 2. So our idea currently to build it in a way like you defining the connector, so you're telling by the configuration, okay, the service will communicate by the IMQP, for example, then this connector is know that he is a part of the monolith and will communicate direct with the Magento itself by using the service contracts and, let's say, the bulk API that integrated in Magento. Or you can have a connector that will define that that's a separate service which installed separately, let's say even on another server. And on this point also, I'm not yet sure if Adobe or Magento is already thought about those possibilities, how we can authorize this service, let's say like generate the integration token, save it somewhere, not sure somewhere, and then use this service and this token to communicate with the monolith. Piotr? Hello, hello.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Maybe.
I was muted. Yeah, yeah, I understand that.
Okay. Yeah, good. Now, yeah, but then, uh, good. I mean, do you have any already thoughts about this, or you made this before the same ideas?
Uh, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience in that area, and
Hmm.
so it's hard for me to say.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Good. Then I guess currently from my side,
Do you have any proposal that's like written down that we can take a look at?
sorry,
Or
can
do
you
you have
please
any
repeat?
proposal or kind of
Stop, stop.
sorry,
Can you
yeah, do
please
you have
repeat? Because
this written down? Do you have this written down somewhere? Down somewhere? Like, do you have a proposal written down, or it's just like something
uh,
for now?
that's a good question to have Valery here because he dropped me this one. I know he created the page which is covered in this one. Here, I guess. Mm, yeah, correctly. That's basically only interfaces which are defined. No, but that's not a problem. We can create basically a list of those stuff and split it like an MVP points which we want to make. And then let's say the next phase is what will go there and just to make it in a way of the yeah, wiki page on the GitHub repository.
Mhm.
Will it work?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, yeah, then basically currently from my side, uh, that's all. Maybe you have any comments? Like basically the main question, if if we can proceed with the backlogging and proceed with the developing on this service, or you still have to define something on the end.
No, I mean it looks great. I think uh, the security review needs to happen,
Hmm.
parallel to this, and I think you can proceed with what you proposed. I think it makes sense.
That sounds great. Then we will prepare the page as I said you, and then we will start to make a backlogging because in the next month we will have 3 contribution days in a row, and we will try to push it there to have more attention on it. Uh, yeah, if anybody has some other questions, I guess this means no. Good. Then thanks a lot to everybody who joined. I guess we have now much more strict and detailed information about the project and where we are moving to. And hope to see you on the next meeting, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.